You're sitting across from your financial advisor and they're talking about expense ratios, compound annual growth rates, and tax loss harvesting. You're nodding along like you understand, but inside, you have absolutely no idea what any of those words actually mean. So you just smile and say, sounds good, because asking feels embarrassing, like you should already know this stuff. And here's the really scary part. That single conversation where you were too uncomfortable to ask questions might have just cost you $47,000, maybe more. My name is Elon Musk, and I spend way too much time thinking about why smart, capable people stay broke while making decent money. If you're someone who feels like you're working hard but your money isn't working hard for you, or you avoid financial conversations because the jargon makes you feel stupid, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Look, I want to show you something that's going to make you uncomfortable. According to the National Financial Educators Council, the average American loses approximately $1,819 per year due to a lack of personal finance knowledge. That's based on their 2023 survey of over 5,000 adults. But here's the thing, that number is almost insultingly low, because it only captures the direct costs people can identify. What it doesn't capture, the compound effect of not understanding money language over your entire working life. Let me break down what I mean with some real math. Sarah is 28 years old. She makes $65,000 a year. She's smart, college-educated, good at her job, but she doesn't speak money language. Here's what that costs her. Year 1-5, she doesn't understand the difference between her company's traditional 401k and 401k options. She picks traditional because it was listed first. For her tax bracket and age would have been better. She also doesn't realize her company matches up to 6%, but she's only contributing 3% because 6% feels like too much. That's $3,900 in free money she's leaving on the table every single year. Over 5 years, including growth, that's approximately $21,500 gone. Year 6 then, she finally increases her 401k contribution after I mentioned the match. But she doesn't understand what an expense ratio is, so she's invested in funds charging 1.2% when identical index funds in her plan charge 0.04%. On a growing balance that averages $75,000 during this period, that extra 1.16% is costing her about $870 per year. Over 5 years, with compound effects, that's another $5,200 lost. Year 8, she refinances her mortgage because the bank called and said she could lower her monthly payment. She doesn't understand that extending her loan term from 23 years remaining to 30 years, even with a slightly lower rate, means she'll pay an extra $52,000 in interest over the life of the loan. She focused on monthly payment, not total cost, because she didn't speak the language of mortgages. Year 12, she gets a $15,000 inheritance. She wants to invest it, but doesn't understand the difference between taxable brokerage accounts, IRAs, and her 401k. She puts it in a high-yield savings account at 0.5% because that feels safe, not realizing she could have maxed out her IRA for that year and the next. Over 20 years until retirement, that decision costs her approximately $38,000 in lost growth. Are you starting to see the pattern here? We're only at age 40 in Sarah's story, and she's already lost over $115,000, not because she's careless or unintelligent, but because she doesn't speak money language fluently enough to make informed decisions. Here's what most people don't realize. Not understanding money language is like paying an invisible tax on every financial decision you make. And unlike actual taxes, you don't even get roads and schools for it. You just get less wealth. The financial services industry absolutely loves this tax. They profit immensely from your confusion. A 2019 study published in the Review of Financial Studies found that investors in high-fee mutual funds weren't necessarily choosing performance. They were choosing familiarity and simplicity in language. The funds with the most straightforward names and simplest prospectuses attracted more money, even when they charged fees that were 0.8 percentage points higher than comparable funds with more technical names. That 0.8% doesn't sound like much, does it? Here's the thing, on a $200,000 portfolio over 25 years, that 0.8% costs you $87,000. $7,000 because you picked the fund that sounded friendlier. This is where it gets really interesting, though. The cost isn't just in the bad decisions you make. It's in the good decisions you never even know exist. Now you might be thinking, okay, but I can just hire someone to handle this for me. That's what financial advisors are for. And look, I'm not against financial advisors. Good ones are worth their weight in gold. But here's the problem. If you don't speak money language, you can't tell the difference between a good advisor and someone who's just selling you products that pay them high commissions. The Consumer Federation of America found that 63% of people believe the title financial advisor means that person is required to act in their best interest. They're not, unless they're a fiduciary, and you need to know that word and specifically ask if they are one. They can legally recommend investments that benefit them more than you. I talked to a guy last month, let's call him, who'd been working with his advisor for 12 years, was paying 1.5% in advisory fees, plus his investments were in funds with average expense ratios of 0.9%. That's 2.4% total annual cost. He thought that was normal. You gotta pay to play, he told me. No, you don't. For context, a reasonable fee structure might be 0.5% for advice plus 0.1% in fund expenses. That's 0.6% total. Was paying 4 times that. On his $400,000 portfolio, that extra 1.8% was costing him $7,200 per year, every single year. When I showed him the math over the 12 years he'd been with this advisor, factoring in compound growth, he'd overpaid by approximately $127,000. He literally went pale, then he said something I'll never forget, "I feel so stupid." But here's the thing isn't stupid, he's a successful engineer. He designed systems that I couldn't begin to understand. He just never learned money language, and it cost him more than most people's houses cost. So why don't more people learn this language? I've thought about this a lot, and I think there are 3 big reasons. First, money is emotional. We attach our self-worth to it. Not understanding it feels like a personal failure rather than just a knowledge gap. You take a class to learn Spanish without feeling bad about yourself, but taking a class on financial basics, that feels like admitting you're bad with money. Second, the financial industry has deliberately made the language more complicated than it needs to be. Complexity creates information asymmetry, and information asymmetry is profitable. When you don't understand something, you pay someone else to understand it for you. Third, and this is the big one, we confuse income with financial literacy. We think I make good money, so I must be doing okay financially. But I know people making $35,000 who are building real wealth, and people making $250,000 who are living paycheck to paycheck. Income is about making money. Financial literacy is about keeping and growing it. Let me give you a concrete example of how language barriers work in practice. Your credit card company sends you an offer, 0% APR for 18 months on balance transfers, just a small 3% balance transfer fee. If you don't speak money language, that sounds pretty good. 0%, but let me translate. They're charging you 3% immediately, which annualized over 18 months is actually 2% annual interest. Better than your current card maybe, but not 0. Now here's the part they really don't want you to understand. If you don't pay off that entire balance by month 18, they charge you deferred interest on the original balance at their regular rate, which might be 24%. So if you transferred $10,000, paid off $9,000, and have $1,000 left in month 19, you suddenly owe 24% interest on the full $10,000 for those 18 months. That's $4,800 in interest charges, immediately. This is legal, it's disclosed in the terms and conditions, but it's written in money language that most people don't speak fluently, so they walk right into the trap. According to a 2022 study, 43% of people who opened a 0% APR balance transfer card got hit with deferred interest charges because they didn't understand how the terms actually worked. Look, here's what really keeps me up at night about all this. Money compounds. Everyone knows that. What people don't realize is that financial illiteracy also compounds. Every financial decision you make or don't make affects every future decision. It's not a series of isolated mistakes, it's a cascade. You don't understand 401ks, so you don't contribute much in your 20s. That means less compound growth. That means you're behind in your 30s. That means you feel anxious about money in your 30s. That anxiety makes you avoid looking at your finances. That avoidance means you miss opportunities in your 40s. That means you're way behind in your 50s. That means you can't retire in your 60s. One language barrier in your 20s can literally determine whether you retire at 65 or 75, or ever. That's not an exaggeration. Let me show you the math. Person A learns money language at 25. They understand compound interest, so they invest $500 per month in a low-cost index fund. They understand tax-advantaged accounts, so they use their IRA and 401k strategically. They understand expense ratios, so they keep their costs below 0.1%. They understand asset allocation, so they take appropriate risk for their age. Person B doesn't learn money language. They also save $500 per month, but they don't start until they're 35 because they spent their 20s confused and avoiding it. They pay 1.5% in fees because they don't know to look for lower-cost options. They sell during market downturns because they don't understand volatility is normal. Both people save the exact same amount of money, $500 per month. At age 65, person A has approximately $1.4 million. At age 65, person B has approximately $380,000. That's a $1 million difference from the same savings amount, The only difference is fluency in money language. Now you might be thinking, okay, I get it, I'm screwed. I should have learned this stuff years ago. Stop, that's exactly the wrong lesson. Here's what I want you to understand. Financial literacy isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing enough to ask the right questions and spot red flags. You don't need to become a CFP or understand black option pricing. You need to understand maybe 15-20 core concepts really well. That's it. Let me give you those concepts right now. 1. Compound interest. Money grows exponentially, not linearly. Time is more powerful than amount. 2. Expense ratios. The percentage your investment funds charge annually. Every 0.5% matters over decades. 3. Tax-advantaged accounts. 401k, IRA, HSA, 529. These give you legal ways to pay less tax. 4. Asset allocation, how you divide money between stocks, bonds, and other assets. This matters more than individual investment picks. 5. Dollar cost averaging, investing consistently regardless of market conditions. Removes emotion from timing. 6. Emergency fund, 3-6 months expenses in cash. Prevents forced selling of investments at bad times. 7. Opportunity cost, every dollar spent is a dollar not invested. Every dollar not invested is future growth lost. 8. Net worth versus income. What you own minus what you owe matters more than what you make. 9. Good debt versus bad debt. Debt for appreciating assets can be strategic. Debt for depreciating assets is usually destructive. 10. Fiduciary duty. Some advisors must act in your best interest. Others don't. Know what you're working with. There are more, but honestly, if you deeply understand those 10 concepts, you're ahead of 80% of people. Here's what I want you to do, not tomorrow, not when you have time, today. Step 1, go to your 401k right now and look at your expense ratios. If you don't know where to find them, Google your 401k provider expense ratios. If they're above 0.5%, you need to switch to lower cost options in your plan. This 5-minute action could save you tens of thousands of dollars over your career. Step 2, if your company offers a 401k match and you're not getting the full match, increase your contribution immediately. This is the only time I'll tell you that refusing free money is unacceptable. If you need to cut spending to afford it, cut something, because that match earns you an instant 50% or 100% return depending on how your plan works. You cannot beat that anywhere else. Step 3, write down these 3 questions and ask them at your next financial conversation, whether it's with an advisor, your HR department, or your partner. What are the total fees I'm paying, including expense ratios and advisor fees? Are you a fiduciary, meaning you're legally required to act in my best interest? What's the long-term tax impact of this decision? Those 3 questions will immediately reveal whether someone is helping you or selling to you. Step 4, commit to learning 1 new money term per week, not from social media, not from random tick, from legitimate sources. The SEC's website, the Federal Reserve's financial education materials, books by actual financial experts. 1 term deeply understood every week. In 1 year, you'll be more financially literate than most adults. I started this video by telling you that 1 conversation where you were too embarrassed to ask questions might have cost you $47,000. Let me explain that number now. That's what you lose over a 20-year period if you make just 1 suboptimal investment decision, paying 1.2% instead of 0.1% on a $100,000 portfolio that grows at 8% annually. 1 question not asked, 1 term not understood, $47,000 gone. But here's the thing I really want you to hear. The cost of not learning money language isn't just measured in dollars, it's measured in stress, in options you don't have, in retirement delayed, in opportunities missed, in feeling powerless about your own financial future. I've met people in their 60s who are terrified because they don't have enough saved. And when we trace back through their financial lives, it's never 1 catastrophic mistake. It's dozens of small misunderstandings, dozens of times they didn't speak up because they felt dumb, dozens of decisions made in the dark. And here's the most frustrating part. It was all preventable. Every single dollar lost to financial illiteracy didn't have to be lost. Look, I know this video was uncomfortable, maybe even painful if you saw yourself in some of these examples. Good, because discomfort is what motivates change. The absolute worst thing you can do with this information is nothing. The second worst thing is to feel bad about past decisions and let that shame prevent you from making better future ones. You can't change what you've lost, but you can absolutely change what happens next. Every single person who's wealthy today, and I mean genuinely wealthy, not just high income, speaks money language fluently. That's not a coincidence. It's not luck. It's a learnable skill that pays dividends for the rest of your life. The financial services industry is counting on you staying confused. Your future self is counting on you to learn. Which one are you going to choose? If this video made you think differently about money, hit that like button. If you want more content breaking down financial concepts in plain language, subscribe and turn on notifications. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, and you definitely do, share it with them. Your financial education starts now, not tomorrow, now. I'll see you in the next one.